Welcome to Miss V, the Storyteller podcast. You guys, I am so excited today. I don't think I've ever touched this subject before, so it's probably going to be something new and different for you all. It is for me, and I am so excited. I always have meet and greets with my potential guests, and we talk about things, and I think this subject is going to help a lot of us. So I've set the stage. And so now I'm going to introduce Casey. Is it Casey? Please say
Hmm.
it.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yes.
correct.
My listeners know that sometimes I have issues with names. So anyway,
It's
so
all good.
she's gonna introduce herself to you and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here and be chatting with you. So, my name is Casey. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist as well as a health life coach. And I work with women all over the world to help them get out of the diet spiral and learn how to be empowered with nutrition so they could live their healthiest, best lives.
Yes, we all could use a little bit of help. Even if you think you're a healthy, we all need a little bit of help. And one of the things that I like about my guess is because she goes the holistic route, and I'm all for that. I prefer not to take meds and take pills and all that. I do take vitamins, but I prefer to find a different way. So anybody that I could connect with that's doing that, I love it. So you all know that I am a storyteller and I love stories. So today Casey's gonna share a story with us. And I believe that stories connect us. We find ourselves in other people's lives and we can connect with them. So what I'm gonna have her to do is share her story. So you have the table. Go ahead and share your story.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so it really begins with me at in high school when I really didn't think much about food and my body. I was very active and health was just kind of a part of my life, but nothing I stressed about. And I took a trip to Ecuador, a community service project, and I, for the first time, started to notice what other girls were eating and not eating. I saw how they weren't finishing food on their plate. I started to question, I started to judge myself. I started to think, okay, if they're doing this, is this what I should be doing as well? And being in high school,
Mm.
as a high school girl, like the pinnacle of questioning ourselves, of finding ourselves. And I thought, okay, well, I should emulate what I see. And so I didn't do it out of hatred for my body, but it was in some way to fit in some way to, as I said, like emulate what I saw around me. And I ended up losing weight. And I came back from this trip. And I remember my mom, like the first thing her saying is like, "Oh, did you lose weight?" I literally lived in the rainforest. I did not have access to a scale. I had no idea, but I noticed I started getting attention, and I was very much a late bloomer. So I did not get attention from the opposite sex readily because did not have curves or anything of the sort at this age. Um, and I was now getting attention from my body in a way that I had never had before. Before,
Mm.
people would say, "You have a cute face, you have pretty fit," whatever, but never about my body. And this fueled me to want to have this more control, to get more of this attention. And what very often happens for people in this stage is they may be feeling out of control in many aspects of their life. So they turn to something like food to control. For me, I felt like food was yet another thing I could control. I was getting really great grades. I was doing really well in track. Had a great group of friends. So I was thinking how food, again, something I could control. And my parents started to notice that this was something that was getting to an unhealthy level.
Mm.
And then they wanted to control me and they were trying to do it out of love. But I remember seeing a dietitian, her pushing different things on me. I remember my mom would make me these shakes every morning, and I would dump. I remember, like, vividly remember dumping them down the toilet and flushing, and my mom saying whatever I said, no, no, no. And this constant struggle that I had with my parents, because I wanted this control over myself. I wanted this autonomy. I mean, especially as a teenager. And it continued, and continued, and it continued into college. And eventually it got to the point where I realized that I had a problem, and I saw how it was affecting my relationships. And I was being identified in this new environment in college for not the right reasons. Like, obviously I was making good friends, and it wasn't like I wasn't able to meet people, but my body and how I treated food, that became who I was. And I was identifying with being the really small girl. Everyone like knew I didn't eat much. And it was how I entered into college. And I knew that it was something that I wanted to change to some degree, but I felt that if I let go of these restrictions, that I was going to lose a part of my identity. I thought that I needed to be small in order to be beautiful. And I also just didn't trust myself. I felt like I wanted to feel, quote, normal with food, but I could never do that. Or if I could, then I wouldn't be happy with how I looked. And the struggle continued, and eventually got to the point where my body had really had enough. My hormones were really, like, for lack of, from the scientific term, they were all out of whack. And I started to develop really intense cravings for food. I started to then have times of overeating, and I just felt so at war in my own body. And I was dealing with this all in secret. I didn't want to tell people because I wanted to be strong. People thought of me as being like healthy and small, and I was like gaining weight, and I felt really uncomfortable. And there was some waking that needed to be had, of course, but then it got to the point where it was uncomfortable in my body. It came with extra inflammation. It came with extra bloat, and in a way that wasn't serving me. Now, some people do need to gain weight, and some people benefit from losing weight. We really need to focus on our approach, and it's not just the how of what we're eating, with the why, right? And the how that the weight was coming back on was not in a healthy way either. Mm-hmm. And I was suffering so much in silence because I thought that I knew so much about health. So how could I admit that I had a problem? How could I, and I kept telling myself, okay, I'm just going to go back to my old ways. I'm just going to restrict. I'll just find a new diet. And then once I get to where I want to be, once I get to my goal weight, then I'll be normal with food again. But this never happened, because your approach to how you achieve health has to be the lifestyle that you then lead. When you want to hit maintenance, you still need to approach hitting that with the same way that you are a sustainable way to live your life. And so I kept going down this cycle and this for years and years and years. And it took me crying to my boyfriend that at the time, who's now my husband, me moving out of college and moving across the country, getting a new group of friends, and exposing myself and to the real world, and realizing my value beyond just what my body was. That I knew my body had enough. I just didn't know what I was supposed to do, but I knew the dieting and the cycle wasn't serving me anymore. And so I started to seek out help. And this was so, so difficult for me, because I thought that seeking out help was weakness. But in it, I found so much strength in myself and confidence in myself. And I first explored many avenues, and I had to find out what works for me. And then through that, I was able to restore balance in my body, to achieve balance with not just with my overall health, but with my mental health as well, with my mindset around food, to feel food freedom and balance. And went back to get my health certifications, my nutrition certifications, and went to then make a career of helping women around the world to find balance and freedom with food and health. And so it was definitely a journey. It definitely wasn't always easy, but I wouldn't trade understanding that and understanding what it may feel like to hit that kind of rock bottom with your food and with your body and with your health, because it is what allows me to understand the mental hurdles and the triggers and what is holding so many other women back, because we've been taught by diet culture that we just need a new plan, we need to buy a new thing, a new meal plan, and we just need to count our calories. But it really starts with mentally how we're approaching our food, our body, our inner dialogue. And which leads me to today, and being able to, as I said, help women around the world to finally feel their best and confident in their body, knowing that there's nothing wrong if you want to lose weight, but you have to do it from a place of health and for love for your body, and to no longer be at war with nutrition, with your body, with health, and that there is honestly a way to have balance with it all.
Yeah. I can agree with you, because if you hadn't have gone through all the things that you had gone through, you wouldn't be able to help other people, because you wouldn't be able to, when they say they feel a certain way, you wouldn't be able to say, "Oh, I felt that before." So
Exactly.
yeah, if you hadn't have gone through it, because I've gone through, um, mine was more, well, I'll share my story. So when I was younger, when I was a little girl, I was very quiet. My listeners, they know my story. I didn't talk and all that. But because I internalized everything, I became a closet eater. And my go-to was cookies and sweets. I loved sweets. But nobody would ever see me eating a lot. And people will always say to me, you never eat, but I was a closet eater and I wouldn't allow people to see me eat. When I got in high school, middle school to high school were those years that were the roughest, because I constantly was joked and talked about because I was fluffy. I don't use the FAT word because I think it's mean, so I use fluffy. I like it.
Yeah.
And I remember being in school and always being taught and walking down the hall. So anytime I would see a whole group of guys, girl, it didn't matter who it was. I would walk all the way around just so that I would protect myself from being joked, taunted, pushed, being the subject. Like they could be talking about anything, and as soon as I walked past, everything became about me and my size. So I would walk all the way around. Even in high school, the same things kept happening. And I'm like, this is just so wrong. I should be able to walk down the halls. But then I also noticed that there were other um, fluffy girls that walked past, but they had a different confidence than me. They wouldn't care, but some of them were bullies, but some of them was like, I don't care. You talk about me if you want to, but I didn't have that. I was the shy one, so I would walk all the way around. And I thought to myself, okay, once I make it out of high school, I get into college, I go out into the world, it's going to change because people are going to be older. I won't be in high school, with teenagers. I'll be with adults. No, adults were just as mean. If I was in the mall, I would go all the way on the other side. If I saw any more than two or three people gathered together, I would go all the way to the other side. But I was still emotionally eating because I wasn't sharing my feelings. I wasn't talking about it to anyone. And so I would, go get cookies and eat them in the car because I didn't want anybody to see me, or at work, I would never eat lunch in front of anybody. I would go sit in my car because I didn't want the comments. And then the fact that I was a picky eater put something even on top of that, being a picky eater, because people think because you fluffy, you just eat all kinds of things. My biggest things were sweets and cheese. Love me some cheese. So, and those things, put weight on you. So eventually I got to the point, and it took me years, it took me a while to get to the point where I said, okay, I'm fluffy. I may be fluffy all my life. I'm a walker. I would go walk. I would walk around. I would go to the gym. I would work out. And every time I went to the gym to work out, the ladies would look at me like I wasn't supposed to be able to catch up or keep up because I was fluffy. And I would be just as hard as they would because I'm active. I was active. But even one lady walked up to me and she was like, "Oh, that was so good. Oh, you made it the whole class. Oh, you did so good." And I guess in her mind, she thought that she was giving me a compliment, but I didn't see it that way. I'm like, but why wouldn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't I?
Mm-hmm.
So that's exactly what I looked at her. So, well, why wouldn't I? And she was like, "Oh, I just think you did a wonderful." I said, "You know what? I'm going to take that as a compliment. Thank you." But it took me some while. I'm a Christian, so it took me some time, and I prayed, and I'm like, "Lord, I really need you to help me with this." And I had to start loving myself. I really had to start loving myself and stop listening to what other people said about me, because I had to realize that I control the way I feel and see myself. And I cannot allow the opinions of other people to change the way I see and love myself. Yes, I'm fluffy, but I'm a beautiful, fluffy woman. And I tell myself that every morning. I'm lovable. People like me. And I say just positive things to myself so that I can, live a fulfilled life. So that's my story. And I can see there's a difference. I was a closet eater. I don't care anymore. I'll sit right there in front of you and eat a cracker. I don't care anymore. So now that we shared our stories, I just have a question. When you said that, when you were away, when you went abroad, and you started to notice how other people ate, was it such a big difference that made you notice than the way that we eat here in the States? Because I was trying to figure out, well, what was that? Was it such a big thing? Because I know growing up, we were not allowed to leave food on our plate because that's wasteful. You're wasting, get what you're going to eat and eat it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we were. But what was so different back there?
So these were other Americans on the trip, but what a big thing, it was Americans on the trip, like, but we were in Ecuador. So there was like a group of us. But I think it was like the close proximity and being with all the meals with these girls. They're from all over the country. And I think that for me, yes, like obviously I had meals with friends, but to see every day, everything they're eating and taking that as that should be the sign of what I should be eating, was the biggest difference. I will say I definitely notice a lot culturally. I've been very fortunate to live in many countries and to be able to see the differences there. And I think actually a big difference is the way that we approach health as dieting in America, and how that leads us to really go down these kind of like yo-yoing cycles and this restriction mindset, especially because we approach so much of quote health with scarcity. So I can't have this, like, okay, the first thing that your if your doctor says you need to lose weight, they'll say what you shouldn't eat.
Right. That's true. Very true.
And what it does is it's the psychological phenomenon, the scarcity mindset. When we're told what we can't eat, that's all the heck we want. Right?
That's true.
Whereas if we can focus on abundance mindset, when we can focus on what we can add, what we can include, and people who follow my journey, people who follow my teachings, know that I'm not going to tell you all food is equal. You're too smart. You know that not all food is equal, but that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy treats. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't not eat those things, but you know that the cookies aren't the same as eating the broccoli, and that's okay. It's okay. You can handle that. But the thing is you shouldn't feel shame if you eat the cookies, because when you feel that shame, what ends up happening is you end up engaging in more negative self-sabotaging behaviors. You feel like crap because you ate the cookies and you were told they're bad and I'm a bad, like, what else other than feeling you're a bad person? You are you eat this thing, you say it's bad, and then you consume it. It's inside of you. How could you not feel bad?
Right.
And so what are you then doing to self-soothe after that? A lot of times we eat more because we feel I already messed up. I've been bad. I better continue to be bad, or just negative self-talk. Or sometimes what I see is people don't feel like then they deserve certain social interaction. How does that affect their relationships with their partners, with their friends, with their family? Sometimes you then engage, as I said, like in other negative behaviors, like then, okay, I won't do the workout. I won't do this, whatever. And it's really important, therefore, that we start to really reclaim our power in autonomy of our own bodies and our choices. We are making the choices for us and how we want to feel.
Right.
You are not, if you want to lose weight, you're doing it for you.
Right. Yes. And that's what I was saying about I had to stop listening to everyone else and listen
Yeah.
to me and tell myself. But I do have a question because I am so conscious and so aware of food. Of course, because I'm fluffy. And like you said, going to the doctor and all that, they always tell you what you shouldn't have. That's the
Mm-hmm.
first thing. Stay away from these foods and all that. So I do get stressed out in it, and I have major anxiety sometimes in the grocery store because
Mm,
I don't want to buy and I don't want to eat the wrong things, but trying to find the right things stresses me out. And because I am a very picky eater, because I internalized a lot growing up, I developed some issues with my stomach,
mm.
because when you internalize it, it literally can do stuff
Oh, yeah.
inside and it would
Yeah.
tear you up. So I'm very particular with what I eat. And it's very hard for me sometimes in the grocery store, especially now with things being so expensive when you go in. It's ridiculous. I don't know where you live, but here, oh my God, I went to buy some nectarines or something like that, and they were like almost $5, $6 a pound. You can only get one. You know what I'm saying? If you're on a budget. So what would you say to those of us who are out there that when we go to the grocery store, we stress out about it? We have anxiety because we don't want to buy the wrong foods, but then the right foods and the healthy food has a tendency to be more expensive.
Yeah. So what I would say is obviously focusing on whole foods and in general, and intuitively, you know what whole foods are. That doesn't mean that processed foods are bad. There's also like processing includes like frozen fruit and vegetables. So we can get like crazy with that, right? But at the end of the day, what I find is beneficial, especially like I live in San Francisco, so things are very
Okay.
expensive. I live in Berkeley, which is right over the bridge, but I just moved from San Francisco a few minutes ago. Um, what the biggest thing I'd say is getting inspiration, seasonal inspiration
Hmm.
for food and for recipes. And instead of trying to do a million different things, double downing on like 2 to 3 recipes and making bigger batches and focusing on ways you can get canned, frozen, and bulk options. So a big thing are like dried beans, a lot cheaper. Frozen fruit and veggies, a lot cheaper. However, they're picked at peak ripeness and frozen then, so they actually retain their nutritional value. Canned items, how can we be able to utilize those? And then I would say the more items you individually get, the more your bill adds up. So if you're making a salad and you think you need 10 different types of vegetables because someone on Instagram has a rainbow salad, that's going to get really pricey.
Right.
However, if we can focus a little bit more on simplicity, we reduce food waste. It allows us to more easily shop for deals and allows us to also be less stressed about the food, because when we feel stressed about the food and the amount of options we have, we tend to not even cook it in the first place.
Hmm.
So yes, it's very unfortunate that especially in America, our food system is set up. And I used to work in agriculture, so I'm very well aware of this and how there are it's incentivized a lot of cheap, not as good for you calories. However, there are ways that we can be able to enjoy our food, that we can be able to live a healthy lifestyle that doesn't like make our grocery bill crazy. It does require some more planning. And that planning also generally requires a little bit more creativity. And part of that may be, say you have a recipe for a stir fry and it says calls for bok choy, and bok choy is $9, and then you see that broccoli is on sale for $2. Being able to understand creativity, like from a creative perspective,
Good.
how you can swap certain things. And I would say that the people online and what's being on social media, more color and vibrance is obviously going to attract more people. But that doesn't mean that obviously we want to have diversity and think about how over your week you're eating versus in just one specific day or one specific meal. We can make ourselves crazy. We think we need to get the exact amount of vitamins for each day. I want you to instead have this perspective of how in your overall week, how you are doing and the types
Okay.
of diversity of food that you're consuming.
That's good. One of the things I like that you said about focusing on like one or two or three, just main things. And that helps you because, when you go to the grocery store, I go every week.
Hmm.
I go every week to the grocery store. But if I'm focusing on just, okay, salads, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have salmon, I'm going to have fish, I'm going to have these things. It does make it a little less overwhelming because I'm just focusing on three. So I love that. That's some great, great advice. Also knowing how to swap out. I love that about, because sometimes you get a recipe, you print it off, you go to the store, and they don't have it or it's too expensive, and you'll just blow the whole thing off where I can't afford that, so I'm not going to get it, instead of saying, okay, well, what can I swap it out with? So I love
Hmm.
that as well. And then I want another thing that you said that I think I need to really focus on doing is look at my whole week and not every day. Because if I mess up, I can be a little bit hard on myself. If I mess up, I am hard on myself when I messed up. Because yesterday I had it was only two cookies, and I didn't, and I can be perfectly honest with you, because the way that I was raised, we don't waste food. And I bought a Lunchable because I didn't have time to cook or anything. So I went and I was like, cheese and crackers is never bad, as long as you don't eat a whole bunch of them. So I grabbed it and it had two cookies in it. And I didn't want to throw it in the trash because I'm like, I felt like my mom was over my shoulder. Don't you throw that food away, because that's wasteful. There are people in other nations that don't have any food. We've all heard that before from my parents. And so I ate them. I didn't enjoy them at all, but it was all because I didn't want to throw them away. But I felt bad when I came home. I felt bad. But I didn't look at the fact that for dinner, I had a salad and I had fish, and that was it. I didn't look at the fact that in the morning, I just had a simple, like a bagel, a plain bagel with nothing on it, whole wheat bagel with nothing on it. And I'm like, you did so many good things, but you focused on the one little bad thing you did. And I think a lot of us do that. So if you met someone that came to you and said to you, okay, where do I start? Is it changing your mindset? Where do I start?
Yeah. So we definitely need to understand our triggers and the mental hurdle. So for example, you brought up this story about your childhood, and this happens a lot with clients. They were, you know, different ways they were praised, or different things that were measures of success. So one thing was like having a clean plate, and how that has allowed us to stop listening to our body, because our symbol now of like food being done is having no more on the plate, right?
Mhm.
So it's really great. It's very important for us to dive in a little bit deeper into these triggers and our emotional roots. Along with that, though, we need to understand how to properly fuel our body. And so, one thing that's very important is for us to understand how to create blood sugar balancing meals. This will help with our hormonal balance, with our energy, with our cravings, with our satiety. When we have more satisfaction with food, we enjoy it more. We are able to go longer periods of time without having to think about food, because we're actually satisfied and full. We can be more productive. So, that includes having protein, fat, and fiber-rich carbs at every single meal. So that's something I would really focus on, is mentally, how do you feel like your emotions are with the food that you're eating? Really trying to think back of, what were you taught about food? What actually is true and not true? What is it? What's coming? Make a list. What beliefs do you have about food and about your body because of diet culture, because of parents, because of teachers, because of your friend, whatever? And then with that, from a nutrition perspective, like you were saying, you had a bagel, like a whole wheat bagel, like maybe had some fiber, but didn't have protein. So I would want you to eat more protein in the morning, so that because protein is so important for blood sugar balance, especially in the morning, right? So, but it's approaching this with curiosity versus, oh my gosh, I didn't have protein, I'm a failure. No, it's something you can add now. Let's think of this addition mindset in a way that we can be able to add to our plates. So instead of feeling restricted, instead of feeling overwhelmed, instead of feeling stressed with food, we can feel empowered with nutrition and the choices that we are able to make.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Now, normally I do have protein with it. But this is I'm being so transparent because I want my listeners, because
Yeah.
I just
No, I love
believe
it.
a lot of them are going through the same thing. So what happened was, what I would regularly have as a protein in the morning with my breakfast went up like almost a whole dollar at the grocery store. And so because I go to the groceries every week, every other week I buy water. So I need to buy water, went up a whole dollar. So it seemed like every time I go to the grocery store, certain things were going up. And so I was like, okay, but this week is the first of the month. So, I'm thinking first of the month, I have to pay mortgage. I have to do this, this, and this. So I won't really have a lot of extra money until the middle of the month. So I'm just going to have to do these things, and I know a lot of people are having to juggle. So what I did was I was like, okay, yes, it's cheaper for me to go and buy this, but this is bad for me. So I chose not to have anything on. And I was like, I'll just have the bagel. Now, I will be honest with you. I was so hungry by 11. I ate it. I ate about, I think it was 8. It was 7:30, 8 o'clock. By 11 o'clock, I could have ate a bag. I was so hungry because I didn't have my protein. I didn't have
Yeah.
anything to help sustain me until it was lunchtime. But it's true. But I was like, I was trying to make the right decision. And because I was so hungry, I don't know if it was necessarily the best decision. However, when I go to the grocery store this weekend, I'm getting my protein back. I may have to just leave something out or wait until like the middle of the month and then get whatever that is. But yeah, I do have another question for you. For those people, for those of us who are out there that may not know the difference when you say holistic nutrition versus regular nutrition, can you tell us what the difference is?
Yeah, of course. So holistic true nutrition focuses on you as a whole person, your mind, body, and honestly, soul. So I know that you're a religious person, and that is something that should be a part of your health journey, then, if that is something that's important to you. And what's very often done in the health space is just focusing on food and exercise. But
That's
you need
true.
to focus on I mean, we've been talking about this all along, but you need to focus on your mindset. You need to focus on how you feel about yourself. You need to focus on your stress. You need to focus on your sleep. You need to focus on a myriad of factors. And me saying that might make some people feel overwhelmed. And that's why there's someone like me to help you, to guide you. Because at the end of the day, you want to be healthy so you can feel good about yourself. And the way that you are trying to approach health is making yourself feel shittier and shittier about yourself. And you think if you beat yourself up enough, something's going to change. But has that worked for you yet? You being an a-hole to yourself, has
Yeah.
that over and over? Has that changed your body and changed your health and made you happier? I don't think so. So what we need to do is we need to think holistically. And so part of this is, as I said, it's not just about nutrition. It's not just about exercise. It's looking at at the entire individual, creating a custom, unique approach, understanding every individual is different, understanding their lifestyle circumstances. I am not about plugging and playing, no cookie cutter approach. No, this works for you. No, you need to understand your unique body. And a word I use a lot, and I think I've already used it twice in this interview, or this chat, was empowerment. Like, my goal is for all the women that I work with is to feel empowered from nutrition. So they work with me and then can move on from there and feel damn good about the choices that they make and how they can make them. They can go to the grocery store and not feel overwhelmed. They can go out to eat and feel like they can have the slice or two of pizza, but not feel like it has to be a cheat meal. Because for
That's
most
good.
of us, it's one or the other.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I think that is so important to feel empowered. And now my takeaway from what you were just saying is that everybody is not the same. We all have our own individual journey, because when you go on a diet, most people look and find a diet and they try to follow it because, oh, my best friend, she was on that diet. It worked for her, but it doesn't work for you. And that's because we all have our own individual thing that we need to do ourselves. Am I correct? Is that what you're saying? We all have to have our own thing. Yes, some of the foods may be the same that you're eating, that I'm eating, but I may have to do something different because of my body, correct?
Exactly. So we need to understand that what may work for someone else may not work for us. And that's not a sign of failure. So many of us like, well, work for her. Why does it work for me? Is something wrong with me? No, Nothing's wrong with you. Just we're all bio and like we all have our bio individuality. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
That's a great thing. But what happens is we get hard on ourselves because we don't have the same results in the same amount of time or this or that. Like insert whatever thing here, and we have more judgment, we have more stress, we raise our cortisol. Raise of cortisol leads to it being harder for us to lose weight. It's a
Yeah.
really vicious cycle. And
Yeah.
so, honestly, a lot of what I do is really helping to restore the confidence in the women I work with that they are able to change, because all of society and everything that they've ever been exposed to has taught them that they're less than, they're not enough, and they need to resort to extremes.
Hmm. That is so good. That is so good. Well, Casey, let me tell you, this has been like so good. I think I've received a lot from you, and there's some things that I'm definitely going to do. One of the main things is I'm going to do the whole week versus every day. I'm going to do the whole week. And I think it's so great about the three different, just focusing on the three because I do get overwhelmed. So if I sit down and plan, okay, this is what the three things, I do that freezer thing though, because I'll go ahead and I'll put it and I put it because it's great when I come home and I don't feel like cooking, at least I know it's something healthy. I can just pull it out, put it in the microwave or put it in my air fryer or whatever, to warm it up, whatever. So I love that. So I'm going to be doing some of these things. I love myself the way I am. However, I can be a lot healthier because the last time I went to the doctor, he said something about, he said, well, everything looks good, just like your cholesterol is just a little bit because I didn't have it before. So anytime it goes up a little bit, he's on me about it. And I'm looking at
So,
him looking like,
I'm going to interrupt you because the number one thing with cholesterol that you need to focus on is fiber.
yeah, oh, that's good. He he said that. I just looked at him like everything, all my blood work came back good, and you found one little thing. But he's a doctor, so he had to tell me. So I've been trying to work on that. But thank you so much for sharing with us. So if someone was out there that said, "Okay, I love what she's saying. I want to reach out to her," do you have like a book or do you have a website or something where if someone's listening and they're interested in and they were like, I want to hear more about holistic, where can they find you, or what can they do?
Yeah, no, great question. So I am going to give you a link to be able to provide your podcast listeners, where I have my free video top 3 nutrition tips training, as well as a stop overeating guide. So you can have that, and guys can dive in more there. The best way to connect with me, though, is to reach out to me honestly on Instagram at Your Case for Wellness. I also have in that my link in bio there a link to all my links, to all my programs, to my private coaching application, to my prenatal fitness nutrition course, to my free Facebook group where I do trainings every week. You can find me a million and one places, but that is the best way, I would say, that consolidated link right there.
That's perfect. And I do have that. So I will make sure that I have it in the description. So if you want to just click and, find more out, you're more than welcome to. So thank you so much for being here. I knew that you were going to bring something new and different. And especially during this time, it's summertime, people want to get out and do things, but we want to feel good about the decisions that we make and the things that we want to do. We want to feel good about it. I know I do, because I get tired of walking down the aisle like, oh my God, can I get this? Oh no, you can't get that because that's whatever. I want to go down the grocery store aisle with ease. I want to come home and feel good about the choices that I made. And thank you for giving me some food for thought.
I'm
So
so glad. I'm so
thank,
glad. It's been such a great conversation.
yes. So thank you again.